Well, although the thermometer might not agree with me, we are rapidly approaching fall. And for people in the South and the Midwest, that means one thing: speed knitting and football. Also football. Forgot about that one. Yeah, that one's actually probably more important. Football games are interesting in American sports because it becomes an event not just for the game, but the day of. And that's where we get into tailgating. No, not like riding the bumper of somebody who cut you off in traffic, even though you were well justified for doing it because that guy wasn't. Sorry. No, I'm talking about the parking lot tailgate. Out in front of a football game, cooking some barbecue, maybe doing burgers, steaks, those sorts of things. The camaraderie that goes along with it, and, just providing food to people and, making that part of the game day experience. There are a number of challenges with a parking lot tailgate cook. Unlike being at home, you don't control the environment, right? It's a wide open parking lot. It could be very windy. That's a huge concern with low and slow barbecue. Also, of course, you have to have room to not just to cook, but to prep. And then you've got the added concern of fire risks and things like that. Now, the fire risk thing, you have to do what you can do to manage it. You want to have a fire extinguisher on hand, those sorts of things. Obviously, all very important. The food prep, I think you're best off doing it at home before you go to the game. Then you can throw it all in individually packaged containers, throw it in a cooler with ice, and you're ready to just throw things on as soon as your fire's ready. You can also take another cooler that has some dessert items and things like that if you want to do a full spread. Speaking of a full spread, that's kind of what we're doing today. Now we're sticking with pork for all of our meat today for a few reasons. Number one, pork is less expensive than beef by far, at least at this point in time. Another thing about pork is it tends to cook faster than beef. If you're going to cook briskets at a tailgate, you better be there at like 2 in the morning to set up, and I hope it's not an 11 o'clock game. With pork, you can do a couple different cuts and get a variety in flavors. Today we're going to do St. Louis ribs, which you've seen us do many times before, and we're doing a pork butt. And we're doing the pork butt with kind of a wet method, right? It's going to be for pulled pork. And we want it to be as tender and juicy as possible for our pulled pork sandwiches. So we're going to smoke it, but we're going to have it in a tray. We're going to collect all of that delicious rendered fat, and then when we go to tear it all apart, that's all in there. It'll also kind of speed up the cooking process, but the main thing is the flavor and texture. We're also going to give you some tips about managing the last thing I didn't cover, which was wind. Barbecuing the wind is very difficult. You have a lot that you have to manage and control, and we're going to give you some tips to deal with that so that your barbecue is something that people actually want to come and get. We're going to guide you through the prep of all of those meats. We're going to make a good rub that's going to work for both the ribs and the pork butt. We're going to make a dessert, and we're going to make some sauces. Again, full spread. But since we're doing low and slow, right now the only thing left to do is get a fire started. Okay, we're going to put together a simple and all-purpose pork rub. We're going to start with 1 cup of dark brown sugar. Dark brown is the better thing to use here. To that, we're going to add about a tablespoon of seasoned salt. I'm using Lowry's. About a tablespoon of black pepper. About a half tablespoon of garlic powder. And then a half tablespoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of sweet paprika. And now it's really just about incorporating all these ingredients together. I use this slotted spoon here to kind of mash it together, and you'll see this brown sugar start to take on a reddish hue, mostly from the paprika, but also a little bit of seasoned salt. I always like to give it a little taste at this point, make sure it came out as I was expecting, and yes, this is perfect. This will be great for pork butt, pork ribs, basically any pork dish you can think of. So this kind of illustrates what I was saying. I haven't really done anything different here than I normally do for a cook, but it's windy, right? And so whereas normally I'd be somewhere in the 250 degree range, now I'm closer to about 325. We're going to let this cool back a little bit. We're going to change our dampers, and we're going to compensate. Okay, now not 5 minutes after I did that, we see our temps already back down at 300. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it is still, I mean, the wind hasn't changed, right? And so the damper control is what's doing this. Now, with pork butt, I like to cook at a little higher temperature anyway. I'm going to probably do about 275. So it will not be long here before we'll be able to throw that on. Okay, so another, gosh, I don't know, 8 minutes, something like that. And now our temps are sitting pretty close to 275. They haven't moved a whole lot, so I think we've got it dialed in. It's going to be a process, right? We're going to have to keep checking it. But for right now, in windy conditions, I'm pretty satisfied with this. And so it's time to put in our pork butt. We're going to go ahead and go in on the middle shelf, kind of over the side there, and we should be good to go. Okay, so we've had the pork butt on here for a little over an hour, I think. And our temperatures have stayed pretty constant at 275. Now, I've adjusted the dampers a little, but for the most part, it's done pretty well. Now it's time to throw on our ribs. And that pork butt starting to look real good. We're gonna do the ribs on the top rack. Slide that back a little. Make room. Come on, guys. Room for one more. All right, and there we have it. 3 beautiful racks, St. Louis ribs. And yes, I keep the nubs in there. Chef's prerogative. While we're waiting on all of our meat to cook, we're gonna start to put together the base of one of our barbecue sauces. This is gonna be an onion bacon barbecue sauce. And we're gonna go ahead and cook it out here on the flat top. You could absolutely prepare this ahead of time at home if you don't have a flat top for your tailgate. So nothing special about this, it's just convenient. All right, so we're gonna go on to the flat top with 3 strips of bacon. You see our flat top is good and hot. I have turned the temp down. I can't hear you over the sound of my bacon cooking. Now you can cook the bacon to your desired level of doneness. I like it to have a little bit of a chew in this sauce just because, I don't know, crunchy in a barbecue sauce just doesn't necessarily seem that appetizing to me. But your mileage may vary. Void where prohibited by law. Non-transferable. See, that's about the level of doneness that I want. And we're going to chop that up later. Turn the heat down again. And we're going to go on with some onion. We also have garlic, but you don't generally want to throw garlic and onion on at the same time. For the onion, you're really trying to kind of get it translucent, but again, if you're a fan of a crunchier texture or what have you, knock yourself out. You do want these to at least sweat a little because that's going to give you a lot more flavor. I am using sweet onions, they're Vidalias in fact, because that's got a good flavor in a barbecue sauce. That onion was sacrificed to the skillet gods. And these are cooking in bacon grease, right? So, pretty tasty combination. Okay, that's about where I want them. They'll have a little bit of chew to them, but mostly they'll be soft. And finally, some garlic. This will not take long at all. Bring some of that grease back over here. With the garlic, we're just trying to kind of let it open up and add some aroma. Less than a minute though, total cooking time on this. Okay, our heat shut off. We can go ahead and throw these in with the onions now, which is exactly what I'm going to do. And now we move to a pot. Okay, a few hours into this now. Those ribs are looking great. And the pork butt is too. We see some drippage from the ribs on the pork butt, but that's okay. Coming right along. Okay, take a peek at how things are doing. Ooh, man, everything is looking fantastic. Those are our pork ribs. We see some pullback here. They're looking good. Fat coming out as I press on them. That's a good sign. Take a temp here quick. 173 there. 190 on the back one. Back one will probably be ready to pull here before too long. We're going to go ahead and hit these with a little bit of honey. Yes, these are sweet ribs. I love sweet ribs. Lots of people love sweet ribs. But we all just decided it wasn't popular anymore. This kind of almost candies them. Makes for an awesome texture. With our pork butt, so we can clearly see all the grease in there. And I mean, it just looks gorgeous right now. It's about 145 degrees inside. I'm going to move the probe just so we have a fresh perspective. Yeah. So what we're going to do here, both to speed up the cook, but also to keep it moist, is we're going to go ahead and cover at this point. So from here on, it will not take any more smoke. But that's okay, because it's taken hours and hours of smoke thus far. And we're still leaving it in here for all those juices to do their thing. And those juices are also smoky flavored. And we're not going to get a perfect tight seal on here, so some smoke will still get in, and that's just fine. Interesting to note that as the day's gone on a bit, the wind has died down. And because of that, the fire has died down because the dampers weren't wide open. So we're going to try and ramp that back up again. Okay, I suspect, as we saw just recently, that those ribs on the back are probably about ready to come off. We'll go ahead and temp them again. Probe goes straight in. Yeah. They should have a particular texture too. Yeah, you can kind of see they got a flop to them, right? It's going to be good stuff. These others have little ways to go yet. We're going to go ahead and move them back just to speed things up a bit. And the pork butt's coming right along. For that one, we'll go ahead and just take it in and cover it in some foil till it's time to eat. Well, promised a full spread, and there it was. The eagle-eyed viewer may have noticed that the pork was more chopped than pulled. There's a reason for that. The cook was taking longer than expected, and we had guests coming over. So I called an audible, to borrow a term. The pork was probably, I think it was somewhere around 190 degrees. It wasn't really that far off, but people wanted to eat. Ribs were already done, so we did what we had to do. It still turned out awesome. A lot of good feedback on it. A lot of positive comments on it. People liked the sauce. We had the two different sauces that we showed you how to make, the mustard sauce, or gold sauce as it's sometimes called, as well as that chunky onion sauce. It was kind of a 50-50 split on what people preferred the most. Important thing to remember here that between the sides, desserts, things like that, all of those things could be made ahead of time, and you could take them with you out to the parking lot at your tailgate. Something like beans, you would just want to make sure you took them in a metal container and you could heat them back up on your smoker. But the desserts, just keep them on ice in a cooler, and you could have a whole meal easily. We've been through a lot today. Wind would come up and go down, a lot of damper control that we had to deal with, but we still maintained a temperature, in between 250 and say 270, pretty close to that region for most of the day. Ultimately, maybe should have started a little earlier to give that pork butt a little bit more time. Thing is, with barbecue, sometimes you do things the way you're used to doing them, and 9 times out of 10, that pork butt would be done. And this time, maybe it's just a little bit more dense. Maybe it was because of the cooking method, right? The entire surface area was not exposed to smoke. I've cooked them that way many times before, but I don't think I've ever done them on this smoker. This is a reverse flow offset. Maybe something's a little different there. I kind of doubt it. The temperature is the same, right? So we may have to experiment with that more in the future. What are your go-to tailgate foods? What's your tailgate smoker? Do you have a trailer smoker? Do you bring your offset? Do you use a pellet? How do you do it? Do you have a tent set up? We want to know in the comments. And definitely share what you guys are cooking. We'd love to do our own take on it and just kind of experiment with it. We have some other tailgate-friendly foods coming up soon. Definitely looking at wings. Of course, you know we're big into sauces, right? And so we'll do a few different sauces, kind of running the spectrum from, you know, like a barbecue sauce on up to something very hot. If you like what you saw here, you got some use out of it, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And please share the video to, you know, people who are interested in barbecue, interested in tailgating, interested in cooking a lot of food to feed a lot of people and to, you know, make people happy. Until next time, this has been Cold War Barbecue.